Kane, what are you doing? I'm a huge Fallout fan, and I'm also Canadian, very Canadian. I was curious one day as to whether Fallout had some lore for Canada. What happened in my home? So I got to researching. What's going on with this place?
Of me when you
Bro, that's all they had to say about Canada was just that it was annexed by the United States? Okay, like, fair. That probably would happen, but there's still a lot of stuff here. There's so much in Canada that, like, hasn't been explored or talked about. We live in a very interesting place. There's some really cool stuff here. What the hell, dude? Tim Kane, what are you doing? So I took matters into my own hands. I wanted to create Fallout lore in Canada in the only way I was confident enough I could do well enough. So I was going to make a comic page based in Canada to explore my home and what happened to it post-war. Let's do it. Let's get into it. Okay, so I have my rough. I was thinking, like, it'd be kind of fun to explore Canada through the lens of a ghoul.
Hey, smooth skin.
Because ghouls can kind of explain, you know, some of the history behind the land, which is what I want to do. So, these are all ghouls. Ghoul, 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 ghoul.
Haven't you ever seen a ghoul before?
This is our main ghoul, our main character. He is afraid of what's happening up here. This is setting the stage of, I guess, the conflict. These are Brotherhood of Steel soldiers, and they are absolutely gunning down ghouls, extincting them almost. This right here is a close-up of our main character, and we're showing what he's feeling. He says, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die. This is terrible. What am I afraid of? This guy." This panel is a Brotherhood of Steel member, and he is absolutely unloading his machine gun, just lighting it off, and my man is very afraid.
Of course, with a face like ground Brahmin meat, you can imagine that folks don't take too kindly to us.
Down here we have, you know, our main ghoul from up here. He's over here now. He is terrified, and he's looking for other options as to how to get himself out of this predicament. He's unarmed and no way to fight back. When he sees this gun here, this is a dead friend, my boy, and this is his gun. He decides, I'm gonna take action, I'm angry, I'm pissed, and he grabs the gun out of the dead guy's hand, and he is going to take action. Let's draw some of this out, let's go!
Frankly, I think you're the only hope we have.
With this comic page process, I have had a lot of time to come up with some of the lore as to where these characters are going, or, you know, where they're located and what's happening, loosely. However, there's a lot of things that I haven't explored yet, and in future pages that may be something I can flesh out and explore, but for now, there's some loosey things. For example, my main character, this ghoul with his little jersey on, he doesn't have a name, so if you feel like you have a name for this ghoul that's, you know, a little Canadian boy running across all of Canada, you know, give me a name. Shoot it down in the comments. You can name this guy. This could be you. You could be the person changing history for this comic, and if it becomes a future project of mine.
Ammo's expensive, so I learned to make every shot count.
Okay, on to some Brotherhood of Steel boys. Let's go! There's some information on Canada in the Fallout series on the Wiki, so I'm just going to read through what's here, okay? Just for a little bit of background information. Canada referred to as Little America by many Americans before the Great War, was a pre-war country in North America annexed by the United States on June 3rd, 2072, for its vast natural resources. The process of annexing Canada began in 2059 as the Anchorage Front Line was established in Alaska to protect its natural resources, especially the crude oil fields from the People's Republic of China as part of the Alaskan Pipeline cross-Canadian territory. The U.S. government pressured the Canadian authorities into allowing the American military units to station near the pipeline and provide security. After the Chinese invasion of Alaska in 2066, increasing U.S. military presence in Canada began to raise tensions to the point of riots. The United States military did not limit its activities in Canada to just guarding the pipeline. Despite Canadian protests, the country's resources were exploited and stretched the breaking point to support the American war effort. By 2069, Canada became Little America in the minds of U.S. citizens, with vast stretches of timberland destroyed beyond recovery. The tipping point came in 2072 as the U.S. escalated its exploitation of Canada's resources. Her people took to the streets. Protests and riots erupted in several Canadian cities, and an attempt to sabotage the Alaskan pipeline by unknown forces was foiled, but provided the U.S. government an excuse to officially annex Canada. Rest in peace, my boys. When pictures of the atrocities committed in the name of the United States made it over the border, they sparked unrest and protests from the American public, both sides thoroughly armed. It had little impact on history, as former Canadian land provided much needed resource for maintaining the war effort, and the country was overrun. In a statement to the press, Buzz Babcock, commander of the U.S. forces in Canada, cited security concerns as the primary reason for the annexation. He also stated that Little America was always the property of the United States, and the U.S. military announced the official annexation of Canada on June 3rd, 2072. By 2077, Cyberpunk, what's up? The annexation was complete and Canada ceased to exist as a nation. Again, rest in peace, my boys. The provinces occupied by the American military became U.S. territories, remaining under its political and military control, but not a state or commonwealth in their own right. Violence escalated and security detachments equipped with combat armor were sent to suppress Canadian population and any resistance movements. Protesters, rioters, and resistance members alike were shot on sight, sometimes even executed on camera. Even among the military, the annexation was met with mixed reactions. For some, the act was considered criminal. Open warfare between the opposing armies across the former nation commenced, with the Yukon becoming one of the many fronts alongside Anchorage in the resource wars. Despite the outcry, the military initiative forged ahead. Propaganda portrayed the annexation as a liberation, with comic series such as Tales from the Front and cartoons such as Armor Ace and the Power Patrol championing U.S. occupation forces while vilifying Canadian resistance. For instance, the villainous rogue robots of the Yukon 5 in the Armor Ace board game Cold Steel were explicitly described as part of the Yukon uprising. Vaultec in particular sought to bank on the annexation as they began building and advertising available vaults in newly annexed Canada. When the Great War occurred and the global society's borders collapsed, some Canadians eventually traveled down into what was once the United States, either migrating in search of their fortunes or drawn by trading goods making their way north from places like New California. Other mentions of Canada in the series: when stolen vehicle of Daniel Fay was recovered, the contents included a Canadian flag. When speaking to Cass about John Baptiste cutting, she makes fun of his name, saying it sounds Canadian.
Jean Baptiste. Sounds like someone got knocked out of the good book so hard his name broke. Either that, or it's Canadarian or some such shit.
Canada is mentioned on the terminal of disgruntled soldier Jackie. Canada is listed as an incorrect answer to the question which country was the first to build a major railway system in an exam at the Pioneer Scout Camp. The sales figures of Sunset Sarsaparilla can be found on an infographic poster in the company's headquarters. The poster includes sale figures of Canada. Some individuals, such as Marge Labarge, and Dave Handy traveled from Canada into what was the United States before the war. In Fallout 3, all mailboxes have a 5% chance of having mail addressed to residents who were not able to secure a spot in local vaults. The letter lists other sites, including newly annexed Canada, as a possible alternative. In the Fallout 76 update, Locked and Loaded, the Quebec Claw is secondary antagonist of the Yukon 5. There is a special encounter in Fallout Tactics called Canadian Invasion Recreationists. During this encounter, Clarice will instruct a group to gather next to the American side of a line drawn on the ground. She will then direct the group to walk across to the Canadian side of the line, and once complete, the group gets drunk to celebrate. She mentions that there are strong evidence that the Canadian Army wore pink. Another random encounter in Fallout Tactics is called Canadian Invasion, where a group is hostile to anyone who approaches, calling them Canadian scum and devious, further commenting that Canada started the Great War. When engaged in combat, they state that they invaded your country once and will do it again. One other random encounter in Fallout Tactics shows two Canadian resistance groups, the CPF and the PFC, arguing over the future of Canada. Each of the two groups features a maple leaf on their respective flags. Beautiful. Okay, so this is a lot of what's happened in Fallout up until the Great War and a little bit after. I think my comic should focus on post-war Canada, or Little United States, as they call it. So there isn't a lot that's been explored there. At some point, they mention a place called Toronto, which I originally thought was Toronto, misspelt like they always do in Fallout, but unfortunately that's not the case. It seems to be an American town that's been renamed or mistakenly spelled as well, but it's not Toronto. Yeah, so we have a lot of open area to explore. According to the lore, there is vaults located in Canada, which is cool. Those would be kind of fun to play around with. It's very open and broad as to what may be located in Canada and what vault experiments they've been doing up there, especially with it being so heavily fortified and taken over by the US Army. I'm sure Vault-Tec had a big presence there, and we're able to do the status quo kind of BS they do to all the vaults. They just, ruin people's lives like they always do.
You will emerge.
And in a country where people are getting shot on the news for resisting the American invasion, I'm sure they did not bat an eye at doing kind of effed up vault experiments on Canadian or American inhabitants of vaults. So there you go. In Ontario, everyone wears Toronto Maple Leaf jerseys. That's just how it is. And in Quebec, you'll see a lot of Montreal Canadiens. Those are the two most popular teams that I see all the time. There's also the Ottawa Senators, but I don't know much about Ottawa, so if you're from Ottawa, I'm sorry. I'll get to it if I get a chance to do more Fallout comic stuff. The Toronto Maple Leafs were renamed from their original team name. Back when they first were created, they were called the Toronto St. Patrick's, and their jerseys were green and they had little lucky clovers on them. The Toronto Maple Leafs have since addressed this history and created jerseys that pay homage to the old team name and team designs. But typically, the Toronto Maple Leafs are blue. The whole team is blue and white. That's their whole color coordination thing. So I thought, since it's Fallout and we manipulate history in an interesting way from where it started, I would, stick with the original Toronto St. Pat's colors, and maybe they rebranded a little bit to like maple leaf symbology, so we still have that Canadian hockey team feel, but their jerseys are green. And so my main character is wearing, probably a jersey that he found and was mostly intact, and it happens to be a Toronto Maple Leaf / St. Patrick's jersey that is green with a leaf on it. The more you know. History with Graham about Canadian hockey teams. I don't know anything about hockey, by the way, so don't ask me anything else, because I don't play it really, and I don't watch it. Even though it's one page, I did need to kind of create some sort of story as to why what's happening in the page is happening, where we are and where we're going. I figured it'd be interesting to do a journey from a ghoul group, traveling from the far side of Canada to the other far side of Canada. Boop. There's a highway that I've always really wanted to travel. It's called the Trans-Canada Highway, it crosses like a bunch of the provinces at the bottom and goes straight across the entire country. I figured that would be kind of an interesting journey. However, I had to create a place where they started. And in this case, I've spent a bunch of time recently in the province of Quebec, which has a huge, rich history. Anyone from Quebec could tell you that. It's wild. So I spent some time there, but I grew up in Toronto, in Ontario, the province beside Quebec. So I figured it'd be kind of fun to start in a province that I've spent some time in recently and explore that. So in this case, the ghouls have traveled a little bit from, I believe it is Nova Scotia, over here. And they've traveled through New Brunswick and over to Quebec. And I'm exploring areas that I thought were interesting when I was in Quebec. Which again, Quebec is a very beautiful place. Go check it out if you have a chance. It's amazing. So Montreal has this place called Old Port, which is a really, really old part of town. I mean, it's called Old Port, literally. There is some really old cobblestone streets and old buildings, and it's just beautiful. I figured that would be the place I would start my characters off in the journey here. They're traveling through Old Port. Now, in my story, I wanted to have a reason for them to leave that place, and in this case, the Brotherhood of Steel is a very threatening presence, and in a lot of the videos and lore that we've seen, the American government and the Brotherhood of Steel, the lookalikes, the big plated armored men, have gone around shooting people that are protesting and putting up problems, and a lot of the issues that happen in the United States might travel up towards Canada, and so I wanted the Brotherhood of Steel to be clearing out anything that they thought was problematic, and in this case, ghouls may be problematic creatures in their eyes because they're not pure and they're not human. They are subhuman and they're being hunted down. And the Brotherhood of Steel is a very threatening force when you piss them off. Their big armor and their big guns and their technology is used to just steamroll anything in front of them. So I figured the Brotherhood of Steel would be hunting these guys and tracking them across Canada. As they fleed across it and used some of the beautiful nature and beautiful architecture for cover. I think their ultimate goal right now is to get down to Toronto because that's where I'm kind of from, and it'd be cool to have the ghouls travel from a place that I know to another place that I know and reflect some of the things I found beautiful in both those places. And maybe in future pages we can explore their trip down to Toronto, and then eventually with some future pages again, if this is something people like, we can travel to some of the other provinces like Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and definitely some British Columbia. I would love to illustrate some of that and show it in post-war destruction. I think it'd be wicked. I think there is a bit of beauty to the Fallout landscape and how destroyed things are, but then also regrowing back some of their weird mutated nature, I think is just incredible. And having people rebuild from the ashes of old society, I think it's very interesting. Now, I don't know where bombs hit in Canada, so I don't know which areas would be worse than other ones, and I think if you are a big Fallout fan and you know some stuff deeper than the wiki, you know, hit me up with a comment down below. I think that would be really interesting for me to see and for other people to see. It could be very useful information. This is going to be a quick time lapse of what remains of the artwork. If you'd like to skip ahead, there is a countdown on the bottom left, so just follow that for reference as to when it's finished. Yeah, enjoy.
Feed a man for free, and he'll be back asking for more. Feed a man a bullet, you won't hear from him again.
Not bad. They're just this inescapable reminder that I'm not the person I think I am. That I'm not a person at all. I'm just a machine, pretending to be human.
Nobody looks me straight in the eye anymore. No. People die out there. Often enough that no one worries about blame. They're too anxious to forget it happened in the first place, I guess.
Woke up in the wasteland, barely hanging out, and got lucky, and some traders I knew found me days later. Good thing, since I was already changing. They brought me here, and here I've been since.
I do remember a stranger coming through here. Had a look in his eye. You know, the kind a man gets when he's got a purpose. The thing about happiness is, you only know you had it. It's gone. I mean, you may think to yourself that you're happy, but you don't really believe it. Focus on that petty bullshit or next job or whatever. It's only looking back, by comparison with what comes after, that you really understand. That's what happiness felt like.
So it's done. My follow comic page 1, is finished. I'm really happy with it. I think it turned out awesome. Hopefully you did too. Otherwise, I don't know why you've watched this long into the video, you crazy little guy. If you'd like to see more pages, more videos, please let me know. That little bit of input lets me know whether I should keep doing something or whether I shouldn't. If you'd like to see more adventures around Canada with my little ghoul buddy, just comment it down below. Let me know and tell me what you want to see. Are there parts of Canada that like you want to see depicted in this comic? If you didn't know, my name's Graham Stoltz. I make comics, I work in VFX, and I've been doing YouTube, I've been doing TikTok. You can follow me on those platforms. If you want to see more of all that stuff, just follow along. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification button if you want to see more random things that I do. So anyways, thank you for watching. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a good one. Bye.